Welcome, I'm Laurel Erznosnik. I'm an account executive here at the Grace Company, and with me we have...
I'm Maddie, or Madison, you can call me either. I work in the education department.
Why don't you go ahead and share with us a little bit about what we have on our table and kind of what our audience can look forward to today.
Yes, so I am so excited for this project. I have worked on this project for at least like 2 months, just planning, designing, everything. So I'm so excited to show you. So honestly, all we need is our materials, which is our nice sewing machine, whichever one you have and love, and then our True Cut travel kit. This has been my favorite thing. I've held it to my side for the past 2 months as I've decided what to do. And let's just dive in. Let's go through what it is. Oh, also, the project is paper piecing. Since our last event, I have realized I need to simplify it more, and I have created new projects and new ways to do it. So let's open this.
So Maddie, what is this that you're opening right here?
So this is our True Cut travel kit. It is absolutely amazing, and it's perfect for any size of quilting that you're doing. Honestly, for piecing, I just liked it because it was nice to have right next to my sewing machine. What's in it is it comes with our favorite little cutting mat, and it's so cute. It's little and it's perfect to fit into any size right next to your sewing machine. Then we have our little ruler, which is also perfect just to have near you at all times. I use it for quilting and for piecing and anytime I need to cut. And then also what comes in it. So it also comes with our scissors and our 28mm cutter. We also have our fun prizes that are here. We have some marking pencils. We also have our magnetic pin holder, a seam ripper, and we have our pencil sharpener. I've customized this to fit me, and I've added some needles in here in case I need to bind or anything like that for my project. And I've also added my favorite 45mm cutter. It is our comfort cutter. It's awesome. It works for anything.
So Maddie, let's really quickly, maybe if we have a moment, would you tell me what's maybe the difference between the comfort cutter and the straight cutter, and maybe why you tend to like the 45 maybe versus the 28?
Yeah, for sure. With this project, there comes a lot of cutting. You have to use a lot of brain power as well, but my wrist usually gets super tight, and I feel like if I have my straight cutter, I need to push so hard for it, and I start getting cramps. I feel like I'm 107, but so I love my comfort cutter. It helps with that, and I have like big clunky hands, so I feel like it
bigger size helps you a bit more.
It fits me more. So I've put that. Let's just hop right into the project.
And so remind me again one more time a little bit. You said this is paper piecing, and then you said previously we had done a segment and that you found you just wanted to simplify that, right?
Yes. So our paper piecing, we're gonna start out with this design. It seems super simple, and it's perfect because you could piece this and not have to use paper piecing. So I wanted to show you how to use it with paper piecing. So I'm gonna move this. And first thing that we need, I've already cut my pieces of fabric, but we are gonna need pieces of fabric that are bigger than the piece of paper that we're working with.
And why is that?
So we have enough room when we fold the fabric over.
Okay.
It might be a little confusing now, but I promise you it'll look so cute in the end.
And so then tell me, how are you choosing the different fabric colors to use? Like, how do you know you want that one there, this one there, and then that one?
I do all the planning before I start the project.
Okay.
And what I figured out is naming each piece of fabric. So on this, we have 1, 2, and 3. So beforehand, I make sure that our first fabric I always pick, and then we have our second fabric, and we have our third fabric. I'm so excited about these colors because they remind me of just fall, and fall is my favorite season.
Yeah, I love fall, cozy, warm.
What do you love about fall?
Honestly, everything. My birthday happens to fall during that time, so I like to use that as an excuse to do a bit more celebration. And then I honestly just love the colors of it, and then that feeling of being able to cozy up with a sweater, you know, by a fire or whatever. I love that. So
awesome. That's me. My birthday's also in fall, so
look at that.
I do love my birthday, gotta say. I'm gonna open our 50 pins.
And so tell me too, because I know you talked about you really love fall, and then I know with this design, we'll get to a bit later, but you actually did a bit of a boot design. So can you share with me maybe kind of why you wanted to do that design with it?
Yes, I love my boots, my cowboy boots. They are probably my favorite piece of clothing, if you could consider it clothing. And I wear it for everything. I got it for my 18th birthday, got them. And I just wear them all the time now. So I'm a cowgirl at heart. It's my favorite thing. All right, so we're gonna start with paper piecing. The side that has the lines and it's printed and it has the numbers, that side is always gonna be against the wrong side of the fabric. So we're gonna place it and we're gonna make sure that it's placed nice, and we are gonna pin it in place. I make sure that when I pin it, I'm always gonna pin right in the middle, so on these lines, I know I'm not sewing on them. So let's hurry and do that. I put one pin down, and I usually try and put another pin towards the top. All right, so I'm gonna finish pinning. Perfect. So now that we have it pinned, and I turn it on the back side, you can tell that the wrong side of the fabric is also when it faces us. Okay. So now we have to place our second piece of fabric. Our second piece of fabric, the best part about this is you just place it right on top.
And then it looks like you're putting, is it so the correct sides of the fabric together?
Yes.
Okay.
So you'll put right sides together from now on. So this is how we see it. We're gonna pin the same way again. And when I pin, I try and make sure that I don't make any bumps in the paper and try to keep it as flat as I can.
And then it looks like, do you typically, when adding the next layer of fabric, try to just pin similarly or close to where you originally had pinned?
Yeah, I try and make sure that that's always stable, just so that when the first piece of fabric moves, the second one will also.
Right.
Okay, we're gonna take it to our lovely sewing machine, and we are just gonna sew along the black lines that are already put into place.
And so then when you go to start actually sewing, do you sew on both the lines that are there or just one?
So you're actually just gonna sew on one of the lines. Since I want the fabric to be in the number 2 spot, I'm gonna sew along this black line next to the number 2. So let's start. Let's make sure that we have pulled our bobbin. We can set the needle down, and we are ready to go. So we're gonna sew along right on this black line, as close as you can. Awesome.
And so then I do have a question, Maddie. So when you go in and you start to actually sew, do you just sew to where the black line ends, or do you tend to follow and go off of it?
That's a good question. I tend to follow and go off of it.
Okay.
That's just personal preference. I find that it stays better in that way. Okay, this is where it can get a little tricky. So we're gonna take it and we're gonna face the paper up towards us. We're gonna fold our number 2 spot back. And we're gonna take our handy dandy little ruler, and I'm using the My Comfort cutter, but you can use either, does not specify. And we're gonna cut 1/4 of an inch off the inseam. Awesome. Okay, we're gonna fold this back over, and this is when I would take my iron and I'd take out my pins. I'm gonna put them right back on our magnetic strip, and we fold this piece of paper over.
And so then really quickly, Maddie, would you mind be able to just show me the other side? Because it looks like you didn't remove all the pins, just 2 of them.
Yes, so I removed, this is why we pin it twice, is so that we can keep this, the first piece that's gonna be in this first block, we're gonna keep it staying in place because we have to sew on the other side as well. But we just removed the pins that held this fabric down.
So the number 2 fabric are the pins you removed.
Yes. I'm just so grateful Laurel's on here. She asks the best questions and keeps me in check. Perfect. So we're gonna fold it over, and then this is where I'd take my iron and I would iron right along this seam. But since I do not have that, then we're perfectly good. And that is your first piece. Now we're gonna take our second piece of fabric, which is our number 3 fabric, and we are gonna do the same thing. We're gonna put right sides together, and we're gonna pin it, and we're gonna flip it over and pin it in place. Perfect. Okay, now we have our pins are in place. We're gonna sew across this line right here for the 3 on the black line. Take it to our sewing machine, put our needle down, awesome. So I had my threads a little tied up a little bit, but it's okay. It's sewed correctly. I'm gonna cut off our excess string. And now we're going to repeat the process. So we're gonna take our piece of paper and we're gonna fold it down. So I'm gonna show you on here. Fold down right here, make sure that's creased. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna take our ruler, cut 1/4 of an inch off from the seam, take our comfort cutter, cut right through. Awesome. And now we're gonna take our pins out, and we can take all of the pins out now. Since both sides are done, we're gonna put them on our magnet. And we're gonna fold this over. And I would take my iron now, and I would make sure that these seams are put down, and voila. This is now your paper pieced first block, and we're gonna take it and we're gonna cut 1/4 of an inch off from the sides. So you're gonna come here, turn it, we're gonna go right along.
So the 1/4 inch, is that just kind of what you've chosen to do, and people can do slightly wider on that, or?
So for specific blocks, I think it's a necessity because that's how we sew, is we sew 1/4 of an inch inseam, and that's why we cut all our fabric more, and we just make sure that we have that. It's needed for my boot piecing that we're gonna do, because that is how all the pieces are gonna fit together. Okay. And we are all finished. So we have our paper on the back still. We have our 1, and that's gonna be this fabric. Then we have our 2 right here, and that's that white fabric. And then our number 3 is this brown fabric.
And then again, that was something that originally when you were looking at doing the design of the quilt, those are the fabrics you had laid out, right?
Yes. Okay, so now that we've finished, I'm gonna show you the first part of my boot piecing. This is filmed at home, so don't judge me for the quality, and I hope you enjoy. Hey everyone, I'm gonna show you how to piece this first piece. So first, you flip this over, and I'm gonna put wrong sides together, so as you can see, and this covers my entire piece right here. That's gonna be the top of the boot. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna pin it. I'm gonna pin it there, and we're gonna pin it up top just to make sure that it stays right in place. Awesome. Okay, I think I did a pretty good job on that. Let's look. Pretty flat, perfect. We're actually gonna piece this top part here first. So, I'm gonna take my piece. I'm gonna lay it down like this just so I can know that I've gotten it enough. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna pin it down. So I gotta make sure that it's right. Okay, I'm gonna pin it. I'm gonna place 1 pin right about here. so that it will stay like that. And then I'm gonna place another pin above, or maybe off to the side a little bit, just to make sure that it won't move while I'm sewing. Okay, now off to the sewing machine. Good. Okay, so here's our line on the back. Doesn't really make sense, but as soon as you flip it over, we have that perfect line right on that red line that I have designed. And so I would consider that pretty good. So now I'm gonna take my pins out that I've placed for the white piece of fabric, and I'm gonna fold this over. And now I'm gonna take my handy dandy comfort cutter and my perfect sized ruler, and we are gonna measure 1/4 of an inch, and we just cut that right away. Now we're just gonna trim on this side just a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna fold that back over, and then we can fold this piece over. And I suggest getting an iron, but for time's sake, I'm not gonna do that, and I'm just gonna finger press it. We're gonna finger press it right across that seam, and your first piece is done. Now we're gonna grab our next pieces. And these pieces are gonna go right here and right here. So I am gonna see, perfect, measures enough. We're gonna pin this in place. I'm gonna pin one above and one below just to make sure it holds in place. And off to the sewing machine. I think it looks good to me, so I'm gonna flip it over, take out my pins. I'm gonna measure 1/4 of an inch. Take this piece off, fold this back over, fold this over, and we're gonna finger press it one more time. And second piece complete. So let's go on to our next piece, which we're gonna piece this piece. We're gonna take this. I would iron down your pieces, but I have not had time to do that. I have been super busy lately, but I'm excited that I have time to do this right now. So I'm gonna place one right below. We're gonna see, we're gonna go right here. We're gonna place it right above. We're gonna make sure that we have all our pieces placed and that they look right together. Awesome. Okay. See this line? Flip it over. Ooh, that's a little messy, but we can just trim that off when I get a minute. So we're gonna take out our pins. This is gonna look so good, which I'm really excited about. I wish I used this fabric on my quilts. Okay, finger press it down. Oh, we're getting so close to finishing this first piece. Now on for our bigger sections. I'm gonna flip this back over. I'm gonna make sure that these are big enough. Awesome, perfect. With my eye, I'm just gonna eyeball it. Okay, I think that should be a pretty good placement right there. So I'm gonna take one, since this is a bigger piece, I'm gonna place more pins than for the smaller pieces just to make sure that it stays in place. I'm gonna pin another one up here, and I'm gonna pin on this side a little bit. Maybe not, because I placed that pretty well, but I'm gonna place it just a little bit. See if my sewing machine, yeah, that should be pretty good. Okay, so I'm gonna start down here, and I am gonna sew this piece. Okay, so I take out my pins. That looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna fold this piece over. I'm gonna grab my little ruler and I'm gonna slice away. Fold the piece back over. And, oh, I forgot to take out one pin. Boom. Okay, fold it over. Awesome. finger press it down or iron it down. Awesome. So now we've got this. Let's do our last and final piece for our top part of the boot. I'm gonna pin one right there. Let's go one down here. And then let's pin one. Let's place it right here where that edge is. Okay, take it to your sewing machine. Gonna fold it over, measure 1/4 of an inch. And I'm gonna take my comfort cutter and I'm gonna, oh, I should have really changed my blade before this, but I did not, so we're just gonna go with it. Awesome. Okay, first, take out the pins. And you can finally take out your 2 brown or whatever color you chose for your base pins, since all parts are now sewn upon it. Awesome, finger press it. Look how pretty that looks. I'm actually very proud of this for how fast I'm doing it. This is the last part that you definitely need to do. You're gonna take it on the back and you are gonna cut 1/4 of an inch around the paper. This is so when you connect your pieces, it actually lines up pretty perfectly. And there definitely are gonna be some times where it doesn't line up, but most times you can't notice. When I first started out, I definitely did have a lot of mess ups and you could definitely notice, but the more you practice, the better you get. And since this is like my 30th boot that I've done, I feel pretty confident in saying that I have gotten a lot of practice in, and so I think that I have actually done pretty well with how this has gone. Okay, flip it over to see the final piece, and ta-da. So now that we are finished showing you how to, I have jumped forward to all of the pieces finished, and now I'm going to show you how to put them all together. So this is why it was really important, and I'm grateful for Laurel's question on the 1/4 of an inch inseam. So because I have cut all of these to 1/4 of an inch around it, now when I piece it together, it's gonna be right on line. So first things first.
And so then in doing this, Maddie, I noticed there's a couple different pieces here. So how do you decide usually what piece to maybe stitch together first?
So what you're gonna need is you're gonna have to do the top part and the bottom part separately.
Okay.
So this piece is gonna need to be pieced first, and then these ones are gonna be pieced together, and then both of them are gonna be pieced.
And is that with this design, or would you say kind of universally throughout paper piecing?
Depending on how difficult the design is, you would need different pieces to put together. Some are just simple blocks where you don't need to do that, okay. And some are complicated like mine, and you have 5. So this design I actually created just trying to figure out my next quilt and what I wanted to do. And I thought after my paper piecing a butterfly, I really wanted to try and do something else with paper piecing and try and make it sound better so that other people could do it too.
Yeah, and so then a couple things, Maddie, before you go ahead and stitch. I noticed when you do it, this time it looks like you didn't pin the 2 pieces together. Usually when you're at this point, do you not pin those pieces because you kind of already have those 1/4 inch seams laid out, or?
It's totally personal preference. I have done this design about 15, 20 times in the past 2 months, so I feel a little more comfortable not pinning it. But for your first time, I strongly suggest, and also if you want a cleaner and nicer look, then really pin it.
Okay, and then I also noticed, and you did this in that previous paper piecing block that you were showing us, but you usually drop the needle. Do you do that all the time to help giving you a starting point and to make sure the fabric is lined up, or?
For me, on my home machine, if I don't do it, once I start sewing, my thread comes, like it unthreads itself.
Gotcha.
So I do it out of habit, but I do think that you are supposed to, but
okay.
If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments. Okay, we're gonna start
And you know, Maddie, while you're doing that, I think that you brought up a really good point, is how long have you been quilting for? Because I think really before you started the Grace Company, you hadn't really ever done it before.
So I used to take sewing lessons from one of my sister's neighbors as a kid, and I loved it. I thought it was so fun. But now working here, I've actually started to use those skills. And I've never quilted before. And actually, when I got the job, I didn't even know this was a quilting place. But I now love it, and I think it's one of the best hobbies to have. It's super fulfilling, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're gonna pin our next 2 pieces together.
And so this was for the bottom of the
This is
right?
for the bottom, correct.
Okay. And so then, even again, I guess kind of going back to the original question is, does it matter what order you were to do or stitch the bottom together in, or really now you're just doing that bottom portion?
So it doesn't matter, just as long as the pieces fit together.
Okay.
So as I'm sewing, I'm trying my hardest and best to sew right along the paper line. So I'm not going on the paper, but I'm just sewing right along it so that my 1/4 of an inch, I know for sure it's a 1/4 of an inch inseam. So as I unfold it, look how perfectly those 2 pieces fit together. Now our last bit, we're gonna take our last piece, we're gonna line it up, same thing, and we are going to go ahead and sew it.
Okay, and I do have a question, Maddie, because I think paper piecing is something I've always thought was interesting, but then I always thought that maybe it was a bit more complicated.
Yeah.
But I wonder, have you ever had a chance or had a time where you maybe, you know, like coming to this part, stitched it together wrong? And I'm curious for you guys watching as well. Maybe put a 1 in the chat if you've ever done that. But Maddie, have you ever stitched the pieces together wrong?
Yes, like a billion times. I actually was doing this earlier today, and I actually did mess up. And one of my pieces wasn't flat, and so I had this big lump, and I was running out of time, and so I asked one of my good friends at work, Anna, if she could unpick it for me real quick while I was doing it. It was so funny. It was like, this is like my 40th boot, I would say, and I still mess up. This takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I wish I could show you the whole process of doing this, but I can't, so that's why I'm trying to show you the best pieces.
And so, Maddie, I know, you know, we kind of talked about that sometimes you may have stitched them together wrong, and I'm sure a lot of you watching have done the same thing. But do you maybe have any tips or tricks, or maybe any of you watching, do you have any tips or tricks on how to kind of avoid that? I know, Maddie, originally you'd mentioned you can pin the pieces. Have you found anything else that's helped you in that process?
Just taking my time, not rushing. When I take my time, I think through it more evenly, and I'm able to make better decisions also, which is nice. Go. Okay, now we're gonna unfold it, and here is your boot masterpiece. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna take all the pieces of paper off by just folding along the seam, and you just rip it. And it should rip quite nicely, just like this. Okay, so now that's over. This design that I'm going to put for everyone is gonna be a 12" by 12" design. And now that this is done, I'm so excited to show you my final project. Here is my final project. I worked so hard on it, and I'm so happy with how it turned out.
It's adorable. So I do have to ask you again. So I know part of it is the country kind of style, but again, did you just kind of go to the store and find the fabric, or did you already have the fabric when you kind of did the design?
When I did the design, I knew I wanted a different fabric for each boot.
Okay.
And I just was able to find different light fabric and then find a dark for the heel.
Gotcha.
And then I found this cute bandana fabric, and I just had to have it. I didn't even buy it for this project. I've had it forever, and I knew I was gonna use it for something. And so I bought it, and now I have a use for it.
Thank you everyone for joining us. That was wonderful to be able to see that piece quilted. And just thank you again everyone for joining us and for being a part of this paper piecing journey with us.